Welcome back to the Gentleman's Gazette. In today's video, we'll share 10 of the most common conversational mistakes and how to best avoid them so that you'll be the talk of the town. While we focus primarily on dressing like a gentleman in our videos, conducting oneself as, and indeed being a gentleman, is the true heart of the Gentleman's Gazette. And if Michel de Montaigne is correct, and the most fruitful and natural exercise for our minds is conversation, then we expect the modern gentleman to be a good conversationalist. To that end, we have already devoted previous guides to the art of conversation and how to speak like a gentleman in general. You can find both of those guides here. Today, though, we'll take a different approach and warn you against 10 conversational mistakes that can make even the best conversationalists sound dull, annoying, or boorish. Of course, the overall nature of your conversation will dictate how you carry it out. The rules are different, after all, between a private gathering with longtime friends and a public soiree among strangers. With that said, though, we believe that most of the mistakes we've compiled here today will apply to a wide variety of situations. Note also that today's video is about ensuring a pleasant and engaging conversation for everyone involved, and as such, we won't go over obvious things that we believe should go without saying, like insulting, threatening, or prejudiced conversation. The Roman orator and rhetorician Cicero once lamented that no rules exist for good conversation, but we're happy to prove him wrong and provide some basic guidelines for what not to say and do. Before starting, however, we do want to make clear that this video is not meant as an attack for those who naturally find conversation difficult to engage in or follow, especially the neurodivergent, like people with autism. Our only desire here is to provide you with the tools to help improve your confidence while making conversation. With all that said then, let's jump into the first conversational mistake on our list, not paying attention. Engaged, fruitful conversation is no easy task, and it's best accomplished when everyone involved can give all conversational partners their full, undivided attention. Not only will paying attention to the other speakers allow you to fully follow what's going on in the conversation, but it will also encourage others to pay more attention to you when you're speaking. Of course, it's entirely possible that you might be busy at the moment that someone tries to engage you in conversation, and at this point, it's best to simply be honest with yourself and your would-be conversational partner. If the task you're engaged in really is more urgent than this potential dialogue, just simply say so. You might try a sentence like, "My apologies, I'm busy at the moment. Do you need my attention right now, or can I get back to you once I'm finished?" If, on the other hand, what you're doing can wait, it's best to suspend that activity and engage fully in the conversation. If someone is taking the time to speak with you, it's best if you can to give them your undivided attention, as you never know what might happen if you don't.
Do I make myself clear?
I'm sorry, I wasn't listening.
Ow!
Next up, then, is our second conversational mistake, getting your phone involved. In the past, phones could really only interrupt us by ringing, and of course we could choose whether to pick up or not.
And in Wayne Manor, stately home of millionaire Bruce Wayne and his youthful ward, Dick Grayson.
Help! Naturally so.
Nowadays, however, it can seem like our entire lives are spent on our phones, and it can be hard to sever that connection even when engaged in conversation. Simply looking at your phone while talking to others is technically covered in our number 1 mistake today. This one, then, focuses more directly on injecting your phone into your conversation. Maybe you can recall a time when someone said, "Oh, Preston made the funniest pun on the Gentleman's Gazette the other day. I have to show you." At least, I hope you can recall a time when someone said that. They then proceed to take out their phone and search for the humorous item, only for that search to take longer and longer, initiating an awkward pause that interrupts the flow of conversation. Now, if something on your phone would genuinely benefit a conversation, it's best to step back or even fully excuse yourself to find it before diverting everyone's attention onto you. Of course, this will be easier to do in conversations of 3 or more people, as the conversation can continue to flow naturally without you. In one-on-one situations, though, this pause might make the other person bored, which in turn might tempt them to pull out their phone, which is probably just going to make things more awkward. Whatever the case, we know that it can be difficult to ignore your phone once you've taken it out, so in general, it's best to leave your phone in your pocket whenever possible and simply enjoy the conversation already in progress. Our number 3 mistake today is using outdoor voices indoors. Most of us have learned the difference between acceptable voice volumes for indoor and outdoor social activities. But we do appreciate that on a crowded dance floor, in a busy bar scene, or when revving a sweet motorcycle,
Lieutenant! My review of your flight performance in the task was right on in my professional opinion. I can't hear you!
it can pay to raise your voice to be heard. However, just like bigger isn't always better, louder isn't always lovelier. Not only is excessive volume off-putting and jarring, but it can sometimes, counterintuitively, make you more difficult to understand. Therefore, always moderate your volume for where you are and with whom you are speaking. For instance, even if you are seated at a crowded table in a noisy restaurant, you should only incrementally raise your volume until everyone can comfortably hear you, and never shout or yell. Even if you're speaking to someone with hearing difficulties, the best thing to do is maintain eye contact, stay focused, and speak clearly, rather than excessively raising your voice, which can make your sounds more garbled. Next up is our number 4 mistake, interrupting others.
I'm really happy for you. I'm gonna let you finish. But Beyonce had one of the best videos of all time.
In the middle of passionate conversation, we understand how tempting it can be to jump in and share your opinions or assessments whenever you feel you're able. After all, from your perspective, it can seem like you're just contributing to the conversation. But if someone else is in the middle of speaking, it is rude to cut in and interrupt them, even if what you'd like to say is on topic. Not only does interrupting someone prevent them from having their say, but it could also upset or startle them and even disincentivize them from participating more in the conversation moving forward. Also, don't think this isn't an issue just because the person might not say anything after you've interrupted them. Many people who are interrupted ignore the issue because they want to avoid conflict, but this doesn't make interrupting any more acceptable. So, if you find yourself interrupting someone, first apologize and then invite the person whom you interrupted to finish what they were saying. We also understand that around the world, various cultures take part in so-called collaborative speaking, where a certain verbal jostling can be expected. But unless all of the participants are aware of this conversational tradition, we would say that it's best to lean toward good manners and avoid interrupting as a matter of practice. Because if you're worried that you might be interrupting, you probably are.
Excuse me. Am I interrupting? I'm interrupting. I'm interrupting. I should leave. Should I leave? I'm gonna leave. Can I come in?
Number 5 on our list today is bulldozing others. Essentially, bulldozing is the uglier cousin of interrupting. It occurs when you initiate or enter into a conversation intending to dominate the entire proceeding. You make your views and input the sole focus of conversation and prevent anyone else from meaningfully contributing. At its worst, bulldozing is essentially a form of verbal bullying where you're constantly talking over and interrupting others to try to maintain total control. And even in more benign forms, bulldozing usually leads to somewhat tepid and boring conversation. After all, if you're the only one who's steering what's being said, this is going to prevent others from meaningfully contributing to the conversational flow. If you genuinely need everyone's attention to make an announcement or similar statement, just try to make that clear first. And remember, the only thing worse than dominating a conversation with a general topic is dominating the conversation and making it all about you. As Truman Capote once said, conversation is a dialogue, not a monologue. Now let's move to the opposite end of the conversational spectrum from the bulldozer for our number 6 mistake, being a brick wall. In other words, being someone who simply refuses to engage in the conversation in any meaningful way. Brick walls offer little to no value to a conversation, and their off-putting silence usually makes others feel awkward. Brick walls often refuse to respond to developments in the conversation and even ignore obvious invitations to participate. Now, we understand that you might naturally be a little shy or not very talkative. But if you've already agreed to be engaged in conversation, it's unfair to rely on everyone else to keep the conversation going essentially without you. So it's a good idea to contribute when you're able, even if that just means asking questions from time to time. And if you are shy, it can also be a good idea to mention to your conversational partners up front that you aren't very chatty, but that you do love to listen so that they won't feel like they're overwhelming you. On that note, you can check out this guide if you'd like to learn how to overcome social anxiety. And of course, there is a difference between being a brick wall and actively not wanting to engage in conversation with someone. No one is obligated to engage in a conversation with you, as Rosalind Byrne illustrates to Buster Keaton in this clip from 7 Chances. Our number 7 mistake today is employing antisocial body language. Ironically, a major mistake in conversation can be not what you say, but simply how you hold yourself. Body language is an important social cue that greatly impacts how you present yourself to others and can often set the tone for a conversation. So, when in conversation, avoid body language that might dampen the mood. Don't slump your shoulders and cross your arms, or lower your head and shrink into yourself like you're attempting to disappear. These behaviors will make it seem like you aren't interested in what's going on around you. Also, avoid any aggressive or imposing posture, like standing too close to others, touching them unnecessarily, or making broad and excessive gestures. Also, avoid sitting overly spread out or straddling furniture, as this can be unpleasant to others and make you seem oblivious. And if you'd like to learn even more tips like these, you can find our full guide to gentlemen's body language here. Number 8 on our list today is overusing small talk. Small talk is often a great way to strike up a conversation, especially if you don't know someone or if you're only going to be chatting for a brief period of time. But once you've broken the ice, you're soon going to find yourself on thin ice if you just keep up with the small talk patter. Small talk alone isn't sustainable as a conversation, and if you keep dribbling platitudes and bland statements, the conversation is quickly going to turn boring and fizzle out. After all, there are only so many times that you can mention the weather. After you've organically passed the small talk threshold, then be prepared to make the conversation more in-depth. Having a collection of engaging follow-up questions handy is a great way to take your conversations to the next level, and we've prepared 53 of them for you here. This way, you can just use small talk as a springboard to great conversation and not as a crutch. Our penultimate mistake today, number 9, is engaging in one-upmanship. Conversation should be a pleasant experience for all parties, so you should never use it as an excuse to belittle others in trying to make yourself look better. Sometimes, though, you might accidentally fall into one-upmanship or unintentionally backhanded comments. For instance, if someone mentions that they just got back from a short trip upstate, that's not the time to jump in to talk about the 3-month grand tour you just took on the continent. Instead, let the focus remain on their trip and wait to see if the conversation naturally flows to trips that others have taken. Likewise, if someone is talking about an achievement of which they're proud, like a promotion or a new job, focus your input on their success and don't try to redirect things toward yourself. To a certain degree, this also goes back to dovetail with our point about interrupting. Make sure that you're listening to your conversational partners and not simply waiting to pounce with your own input. You're having a conversation, remember, not a contest, so don't worry about winning, only on making sure that everyone is having a good time. Finally then, we come to conversational mistake number 10, not reading the room. This final mistake is relatively broad, but keeping it in mind will ensure that your conversations are engaging and fun. Essentially, reading the room refers to being mindful of what others are expecting from a conversation. Based on who is present, the nature of the event, the overall mood, and your personal relationship with your conversational partners, some types of conversational engagement just aren't going to make sense. For example, an aside from a stranger about an upcoming superhero film isn't the time to get into a protracted debate about whether DC or Marvel is better. And a light-hearted cocktail party hosted by a friend from work probably isn't the best time to bring up that book you've been reading on gory 19th century battlefield surgery. Obviously, you want your conversation to reflect your interests, but not at the expense of others' interests and comfort level. Therefore, keep the prevailing tone in mind before striking up any potentially incendiary conversational topics, and be mindful of how others are responding to what you're saying. Now, before we go, we've got one more brief word for you today. As we noted in our opening, we really do hope it goes without saying that a gentleman should never engage in any conversation that demeans, degrades, or insults anyone. It should never be shocking or upsetting.
Hey, Skipper, good to meet you. Where'd you start out, on the Merrimack? Hey, I should talk. I hope I look that good when I'm 200.
That's such insubordinate. Larry, please, he's very sensitive about his age.
Oh, Monty, this must be the son I've heard so much about. Larry, you must meet our daughter, the debutante. She came out last spring.
Whoa, put her back in. She's not done yet.
In other words, pretty much don't do that. Armed with these 10 guidelines, then, we hope that you'll feel empowered to really showcase your wit and charm without worrying about any potential mistakes. If brevity is the soul of wit, our brief summary is as follows. Don't dominate the conversation, acknowledge and support everyone present, and in conversation as in life, treat others how you'd like to be treated. Avoiding these mistakes will ensure the excellence of your conversation, for as Somerset Maugham once said, conversation is one of the greatest pleasures in life. And while the conversation in this video has been a bit one-sided so far, we want to hear from you too, so be sure to leave your thoughts in the comments section below. Just one thing to tackle first, and that's the outfit rundown. In today's video, I'm wearing a fairly casual, warm weather outfit, good for having some informal conversation among friends. The outfit revolves around a relatively simple color scheme of yellow and brown, and the central element is my yellow and white striped shirt in linen from the Australian brand Coast Clothing. My trousers are in a plain brown shade, and my shoes are brown suede loafers in almost a slipper style from the brand Velasca. Meanwhile, my socks are shadow-striped models from Fort Belvedere in colors we're calling caramel and dark burgundy that harmonize pretty well with my shirt. To go along with this casual feel, I've let my beard grow a bit and also left the product out of my hair today, but in the outdoor shots you're seeing, I am of course wearing my trusty coconut straw pork pie hat. And for the socks I'm wearing in today's video, along with a wide array of other classic men's accessories, you can take a look at the Fort Belvedere shop here.